up, that allows the feet to come underneath smoother, and then your bases look for the grab. So that has been legal always. Let's go to the next clip. So here's another version. This is the vertical to vertical. Now on these, you can go prep to extended, prep to prep, prep to load, whatever you want, and you can half twist, you can full twist. The key technique part on this is notice those bases on the release, they drive the feet close together. This helps the top, if they're spinning, it helps them spin faster, but also it helps the top keep her feet in underneath, because when you're teaching this, a lot of times what will happen is the top's feet will go out wide and get out over top of the head of the bases, and they have to almost reach behind themselves. So if they drive the feet in at the top, if they drive those feet in close, that cleans up a whole lot of that right there, and it makes you a much nicer line. And again, you can full twist, half twist, prep to prep, prep to high. But if you go high to high, that's where that rule kicks in about only a quarter turn. Okay, so that's a basic prep to prep with a half twist. Go to the next one. Now on this one, here's a rule change. So in the past, if you were at a horizontal position, the clip we just showed you 2 ago, you could only land in a prep. Now, the rule now has changed where you can go extended. So that seated position is considered a horizontal position by the way it's written in the NFHS rulebook in the description. So that's a horizontal position that lands extended in a prep position. Last year, you would not have been able to do that visual. Also, if you were the other way, where the top person is laying on her back and her legs are up, you could land that in an extended position as well. Both of those are considered horizontal and now allowed to go to a extended position. And really, for your top person, she's just thinking feet together, and keep lifting up. Everybody underneath, they're driving up, they're building up speed and catching at the top. You don't want your bases to get in the habit of catching halfway through or catch it right above their head and press. Tell them to have confidence in themselves and catch it at the top. It makes everything so much easier, especially because their arms are already locked out. They can transfer the weight straight into their shoulders and trunk. And then notice those bases are in close, so they're sharing the weight. So again, that's a rule change that's going to be for this year. So the next one, we wanted to show you this because there's a rule change in the pyramids, and so this is the way you would practice it. So those Bajas, those single base brace flips that Steve had showed you earlier, and I believe he even showed you one with a half twist or an Arabian type visual, this year you can do a full twist. So now those single base front, in particular the front flip, can now also full twist. So the way you would train that is with this Baja full twist on the ground. Now, it's going to feel a little bit different because they're going to have more time once they're up in the air, but you do want to make sure they're comfortable with this skill first before you start trying to do it at the pyramid level. The one thing you'll notice about this is that the top person will rotate and have her head start coming away from the ground before she spins. This is one of the few times we would ever teach you to spin late. And the reason being is we want to make sure the head is rotating away from the ground before we start worrying about adding that twist in. So that's why that twist has to be quick, and it's usually done later in the skill into the cradle. For the pyramid version, you'll have a little bit more time, so they may be able to. Since we've already done the Baja twist, so now we're going to go here. We showed you the pop down earlier, just the release and coming back down, giving resistance. Well, you can also full that down. All right. Now this is a tough full down for your tops because they don't have anybody helping them rotate like you would say on a corkscrew down. So the key thing, notice this top, she's lifting up. She gets her hips and shoulders rotating at the same time. The bases are worried about getting her up as high as possible. And then notice they try to get back in contact as quick as possible. The key contact here is, notice how fast the top gets back in contact, which turns her hands and reaches so that she can help finish the spin. And then that gives that top something to grab onto and start giving resistance to. That's a really cool pop down there. Again, with the full twist. It's going to be, again, more difficult, though, than the corkscrew version because the top doesn't have somebody helping her move through that spin as much as like a corkscrew would. Another type of spinning, let's go to the next clip. So this is a modified full up. You can tell immediately because the legs are crossed by the top person. Now, this is different than the other type of full up, which we're going to show you in a second. And the reason it's different is because both bases will stay in contact throughout the entire spin. So in a difficulty progression list, this would be considered a little bit easier than the other version. And at some camps, or if you're working with a team that maybe hasn't spun at all, you may want to teach this first so they can get used to it, get used to the spinning. So basically what happens here is the top loads in, crosses legs, make sure they know which way they're crossed and which way they should turn. And then one base will have both heels and one base has both toes. As the top opens up, the bases will let go of the heel and the toe that they don't need and take that free hand and put it on the foot that they are already in contact with. Your back spot can do a couple of things. Sometimes they just give support under the hip. This back spot, if you can notice it, is actually reaching through with her right. She's on one of the ankles to help the rotation, and her other hand is on the hip to help the lift. The key thing here, coach, is that when you're teaching this version is your tops will have a tendency for their feet to go wide because of the cross leg. And so you want to make sure they're thinking, keep feet in close, back spot help as soon as possible, bases stay up underneath and keep those feet in close. That's one of the key things about this spin. If you already have the other type of full up where you're working on it, then you may not want to learn this version. You may just want to go straight to that one. So we'll show you that one next. I'm going to go straight to the top on this one because of time, but obviously you would want to practice this to a low position first. But the technique is the same regardless, except for a little bit of speed. Key things here. Your main base takes her front hand and turns her fingers towards her stomach. That allows her to stay on the toe the entire time. Your base should think that she's going to try to take this to an extension as much as possible, and then there'll be a point where she will drop that elbow, which will initiate the spin. She can take her backhand and actually reach over top to try to get back in contact with that shoe as soon as possible. Your other base is going to load in like a double base extension, give some power, and then she's going to go after that foot as soon as possible. She's going to reach across, and you want to exaggerate this as much as possible so that your bases and back spots understand. Reach across, make contact as soon as possible. That will help her keep that foot from getting out over top of her head, and then that gives that top something to grab onto and start giving resistance to. That's a really cool pop down there. Again, with the full twist. It's going to be, again, more difficult, though, than the corkscrew version because the top doesn't have somebody helping her move through that spin as much as like a corkscrew would. Another type of spinning, let's go to the next clip. So this is a modified full up. You can tell immediately because the legs are crossed by the top person. Now,